If you need help deciding whether Battlesector is the right 40k turn-based strategy game for you, this video will answer all of your questions by starting with a 60-second, too long didn't read overview before looking at the detailed mechanics so you can get a real feel for what it's like to actually play it, before answering some more practical questions to help you decide whether this game is worth your time and money today. Battlesector is a hex-based, turn-based strategy game set in the Warhammer 40k universe, where the main campaign features the Blood Angel Space Marines facing off against the Tyranids over the course of 20 missions, after which you can play a simple skirmish online or against the AI, or a survive as long as you can Daemonic Incursion Horde mode, or a conquest-style skirmish campaign called Planet Supremacy, though both of the latter modes feel like an afterthought. Across the various modes, the gameplay itself is basically the same, a very by-the-book turn-based experience that does nothing new, and although there are balance issues, it puts in a respectable performance. The powerful voiceover performances and strong visuals will tempt those looking to immerse themselves in the 40k universe, especially those with an interest in the devastation of Baal. So if you don't mind a turn-based game, already have an interest in Warhammer 40k, and want more manly one-liners than you can shake a stick at, Battlesector might be your cup of tea. If that's not put you off, then let's delve into the detail of what it's like to actually play the game, starting with the detailed mechanics, which are basically the same across the different game modes. Before going into most missions, you will need to decide which units to bring, which is limited by your command points. Different units have strengths, weaknesses, weapons range, and basically do a good job of replicating both the actual tabletop Warhammer experience as well as your typical computer-based strategy game. Once you're in a match, you can deploy your units across a pretty limited deployment area before taking it in turns with your opponent to move and shoot your way around the battlefield, usually with objectives that go beyond simply killing everything. You may need to escort a unit to extract the gene seed from your fallen brothers. You may need to reach a square to deactivate a component within a certain number of turns, and so on. Each unit has a certain range of vision called its Auspex line, which will vary depending on which way the unit is facing, and beyond which enemies are hidden, though there is a vague visual clue whenever an enemy unit moves in the fog of war. In fact, some units can charge, and the effectiveness of that charge will depend on which way the enemy unit is facing, so deciding which way your units face is important for multiple reasons. Range of movement will vary massively depending on the unit, and you have the option of spending action points so your units can move a bit further. Although terrain can get in the way and be used as cover, certain units can fly over it, and some can even float. Once your unit is in place, if they didn't spend their action points moving, they can attack once, or sometimes twice. A percentage hit chance will be displayed when surveying the battlefield, and each weapon has an optimal range, giving you extra reason to position your troops in a certain formation, ensuring their weapons are bared at their most efficient range. Some units have the ability to actively fall back, which hugely increases their defensive stats, while others have an armor rating, which makes them impervious to certain attacks, and so a weapon with a high enough armor-piercing stat will be required to actually damage them. If you still have some action points left at the end of your turn, you have the option of activating Overwatch and setting the unit's rotation and Overwatch range in order to optimize their defense during your opponent's turn. As you can tell, there's nothing spectacular about any of this, but Overwatch does interact with a unit's momentum. The way in which a unit gains momentum depends on that faction's trait, for example racking up kills, but it's lost if a unit has action points remaining at the end of its turn, or that unit is set to Overwatch, effectively encouraging you to attack. If a unit achieves full momentum, they will gain +1 to their movement. You can also choose for that unit to either empower or surge, which will spend the momentum. Empowering provides a one-off boost to a special ability, and surge provides one additional action point on that turn. Some weapons and abilities take multiple turns to recharge before they can be used again, and certain weapons come with limited ammo, restricting how many times they can be fired in a match. Generally speaking, units that are killed will not carry over to your next mission, whereas injured units will be. Then between missions you get to spend some points unlocking a tech tree, which will provide either new units for requisition or a particular power or weapon for a unit to use, ensuring your arsenal becomes more deadly over time with a wider range of options. The most powerful abilities are called in by your HQ unit. You unlock these abilities between missions, then as your army's momentum grows, you can eventually spend points on powerful abilities such as the devastating strafing run that can take out multiple enemy units in one swoop. When it comes to the straight-up skirmish mode, you have a few options. First, it's only 1v1, which is disappointing, but there are 3 ways to play skirmish. Live is your standard skirmish mode against either the AI or a human opponent. Asynchronous is where you can take your time, close the game, and come back to it tomorrow when you're ready to take your turn. A bit like playing a long game of chess with a friend. Then we have hot seat for those playing in the same room, on the same machine, and want to take it in turns on the hot seat. Within skirmish, there are a few modes for you to play. There's the simple exterminate mode. There's a mode where you need to control a zone for long enough. There's another with multiple points on the map to fight over and control. Then there's the siege mode with an attacker and a defender. Ultimately, though, the gameplay experience is nothing new in terms of the mechanics themselves. The game could even be labelled as simplistic in that respect, but the mission objectives you are tasked with in the campaign are pretty varied, whether it's defending against wave after wave of a numerically superior enemy, or reaching a particular objective within a certain time limit. For those hardcore gamers who enjoy a competitive PvP experience, the developer arranges competitive tournaments, some of which are open to anyone who wishes to enter. But what if skirmish isn't your cup of tea? Daemonic Incursion is a horde mode, plain and simple. You select an army, start in the middle of the map, and fight off wave after wave of the demonic legions of Khorne, until you can fight no more. With the occasional boost to your forces, it's just a case of seeing how long you can last. That's what she said. It is fun, but feels like a shallow add-on that adds to the overall package, but isn't a reason to purchase the game on its own. Planetary Supremacy is a conquest-style skirmish campaign for those who have finished the Crimson Dawn campaign but aren't that interested in multiplayer. In Planetary Supremacy, 3 factions fight for control of a map made up of hexagons. You start at your base hex with a basic army and, at first, take control of the nearest hexes, which are either unoccupied or contain a generic AI force. Then it takes a good few turns for the 3 real players to actually come into contact with each other. Taking over a hex generally yields a bonus of some sort, which might boost your total army command point size, for example. And although it is possible to auto-resolve, each confrontation generally involves a battle, where you either have to take control of the point on the randomly generated map, or simply destroy the other army to gain control of that hex. Again, there's nothing new here. It's a standard tug-of-war between 3 players that isn't enough to justify purchasing the game on its own. But the developer has committed to further developing these modes, even though the base game came out in 2021. Hopefully by now you have an idea of what it's like to actually play Battlesector, so let's address some of the more practical considerations that might affect your purchasing decision. The learning curve is pretty low if I'm honest. The game just isn't that complex compared to its peers. The tutorial does just enough to get you going and then you're swept up in the story. There are 20 levels in the main campaign and I'm pleased to report that on average each one took me an hour to complete, which compared to other games is a decent amount of content. Company of Heroes 3, we're looking at you here. And it's overall really well paced for those who don't want to spend ages learning a game and want to be able to pick it up and put it down again. Battlesector is rather surprisingly not a co-op experience. You can play head-to-head against one friend, but that's it. You're otherwise playing the AI, or 1v1 against strangers. Although the lack of co-op feels restricting, there is flexibility elsewhere, as players can create their own custom maps in a dedicated map builder, which includes the ability to add those maps into the Planetary Supremacy mode. And there is even a custom campaign creator, which can be shared and played by others if you enjoyed the main campaign and want more of that until the devs release the next official campaign, which they have committed to. There are several official DLCs available for purchase, but none of them include new campaign content. They're basically new factions to play outside of the campaign, or top-ups that provide a few extra units to the armies you already have. So if you love the orcs, then you may well be tempted by that DLC, but on the face of it, that's a lot of money to spend on the base game and the DLC to get the faction you want. If you've seen one of my videos before, you'll know I very, very rarely recommend paying full price for any game, but I'm going to break with tradition because the Battlesector main campaign is a good egg. It's well made and a decent amount of content. It will appeal to anyone with a vague interest in either turn-based strategy or the Warhammer universe. However, the game does receive deep discounts of up to 50% on a regular basis, so you may as well wait for one of those anyway. When it comes to the DLCs, it depends how old that DLC is. The older ones, such as the Necrons DLC, can see discounts up to 40%, whereas the newest Tau DLC can see up to 15% off. So with all that said, is Battlesector right for you today? As always, it depends who you are and what you enjoy. Firstly, I want to confirm that the game can be played both on console and on PC, with most of my hours being played on Steam Deck, which worked very well indeed. As the game doesn't do anything new, it isn't for those who are looking for the next big thing in the turn-based strategy genre. The mechanics simply would not keep you entertained for long. If you play the tabletop version of Warhammer in real life, then Battlesector is a respectable tabletop simulator. However, I suspect the balance between the factions would infuriate you, if replicating the tabletop experience is your main goal. The sweet spot, in terms of Battlesector's appeal, is for those who enjoy some casual strategy gaming and find the Warhammer universe appealing in general, though especially those affiliated with either the Blood Angels or the Tyranids. It is a good way to immerse yourself in the grimdark future, so if that's what you're after, then the main campaign alone makes Battlesector worth your time and money, provided you're not looking for the next big evolution in turn-based strategy. If you have any further questions, please feel free to ask, or if you already own the game and have some additional information you'd like to add, let us all know in the comments below. And if you found the video useful, please leave a like for the algorithm gods and consider subscribing if you'd like to see more of this style of review. See ya.